Okay guys, so I don't know how long this video is going to be, and it might be in parts because I am filming it on my phone. So I want to do a top 10 Tuesday video on books that made me cry. This is all the way from tearing up a bit to almost ugly cry, if I was alone enough and totally focused into the book. Yes. So I was suggested to do top 10 female authors, but honestly, male or female, I don't feel I've read enough from one author to have a top 10 yet of authors, but I do hope to have something like that in the future. So a few of these should be absolutely no surprise to you guys at all if you've watched this channel long enough. And yeah, some of these, like, there are just maybe little moments. There are maybe a fact or two about the character or what they went through or the plot that just made me feel all the feels. So, let's start the list. At number 10, I'm cheating a little bit because I haven't actually completed this book yet. But I am almost finished. And that is Turtles All the Way Down, which is like the newest book by John Green. So, a big reason that I connect a little bit to this character, even though she doesn't have, or I don't feel I have, like, exactly what she has, is the whole anxiety thing. It's like, it sucks. It sucks when you have to rationalize everything at times. Like, there are times that you are just fine, and then it just kicks in, and I don't know if it's like that for other people, that you have to have things that distract you from your thoughts. So basically, this book is about a girl named Aza, and she has this, like, OCD kind of thing. I don't even know if it's really OCD. I think it is in a way. I think that's how some, like, reviews have described it. But basically, she has an anxiety over germs and bacteria. Now, I don't have that. I'm the type of person that worries about bad things happening and just having to, like I said, rationalize that if something bad happened, like, I would find out, people wouldn't wait to tell me, and this and that, and, I always have to be careful of caffeine and stuff, no matter how much I love coffee and stuff. But basically, she has this germ phobia and bacteria, where she's always thinking about germs and bacteria and what could lead to this that could kill her and stuff like that. And these thoughts, they take over her all the time, no matter what she wants to do, no matter even if she wants to, like, live a normal life, they always just come back. And, like, those type of anxiety thoughts, they really do haunt you and everything, and they just grab you, and sometimes there is no escape. Sometimes you really have to force yourself, you have to drown them out. And that's why I'm loving this book, even though I don't have what she has, because I'm not really a germaphobe. Even though, like the normal person, things can gross me out, I'm not at that level. But I wouldn't say that I do not have any kind of anxiety, because I do. Number 9 is Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson. Now, I read this years ago, and then I had reread it. I didn't get a chance to reread it for the rereadathon yet because of my move and everything, but I was actually thinking about finding the new graphic novel of this book. And so this book deals with a young girl named Melina Sordino, I think her name is, like, Melina or Melinda, but I think Sordino is her last name. And she is basically assaulted at this party. And what really made me sad is just the things she went through, that she kept it to herself, that her friends kind of ditched her and they didn't get her side or anything. It's like, this was one of the first books that I actually wanted to, like, throw across the room. Not because it was bad writing or that I didn't like what the author was writing, but I was just so mad at her friends. And I think that's why I liked it, because it seemed, like, authentic in that way. Like, it really made you feel something for this character. It made you feel anger for, like, her friends not being there, total ignorance to what happened and everything. And this poor girl, she just left to deal with this by herself because, you know, teenagers. Number 8. Well, this one isn't exactly something like Speak or some of the other books. It definitely has its moment because it really makes you think about the things that we have that we are allowed to have. And yeah, perhaps there's a chance that the world could be better than it is. It could be safer. But at what cost? What will we have to take away from us? How much do we have to dehumanize ourselves for this dream to happen? And I am of course talking about the fantastic book The Giver. It is very short for a book. It's only like maybe 200 pages or so. Maybe not even that. I can't remember. It's just so small. But she was able to pack this by Lois Lowry, by the way. She was just able to pack so much thought and emotion and even character development and stuff into the small book, and it's mainly marketed YA or middle grade. Like, I think at least 6th grade and up really probably could read it. But just that whole thing with Jonas and the memories, and like when he receives the memories of what grandparents are, and like especially if you grew up with a big family, or at least aunts and uncles and grandparents and cousins and all that other stuff. I mean, just imagine, a world where you're not even allowed to pick your spouse. You're not allowed to pick and name your children. Like, you don't know what sunlight or snow is and everything. And it's just one of those things that really makes you grateful for everything, despite the fact of the other stuff. Okay. What do I have for number 7? So, 7 and 6 are both by the same author, and they are both by Kate DiCamillo. So 7 is The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. This book, I've talked about it. It is so beautifully written. This one is more children's than even middle grade, I think, but it's kind of on the line. It's like longer than a picture book, but it also is not totally middle grade. But basically, it is about this China rabbit. He is very vain. The world revolves around him, according to him. And then one day he is lost, and he kind of goes on this journey to get home, and he meets all these kinds of people, and he basically learns about care for other people, and he learns what love is, and unfortunately he learns the pain that comes with love. I mean, he comes across a little girl who is very sick, and her brother, who loves her and is overprotective of her because their father is basically a douche canoe, And yeah, it really is about just the beauty of loving and being loved, and the fact that sometimes the heartbreak is also what makes it worth it, because you can't, you have to know bad to know good and everything. I mean, those are the things that I got out of it. Number 6 would be Because of Winn-Dixie. And this one deals with family and who's truly family, who's there for you, being strong, So the book is about a girl named India Opal who, her father is a preacher, and they moved from another state. I can't remember exactly which one it is, but now they're living in Florida. And years ago, before she couldn't even remember, like when she was a baby, her mother basically abandoned them. So she's dealing with abandonment issues. She meets a lady named Gloria Dump, and while, again, this is a kid's book, so it's not totally put out there, the idea of alcoholism or her being a former alcoholic is kind of hinted at. And it's really about, judging people for who they are now forgiving the past, moving on, being strong, understanding that you're worth who you are and everything, that just because somebody does something doesn't mean that other people don't love you, doesn't mean you're not worthy of love because they make bad decisions. Also, that people shouldn't be judged all the time for their bad decisions. You know? Like, just because you're not a bad person doesn't mean you've never done bad things, but again, that's not only who you are. Number 5 and 4, again, coming back to the idea that you guys should not be surprised, is Suzanne Collins' Catching Fire and The Hunger Games. Now, you may have noticed that The Hunger Games is a trilogy, which means 3 books. And number 3 has not been on this list. That's because I didn't feel that emotional in that book. Even though there's one death in there, I'm not going to tell you who it is because I think people should read this trilogy because it is fantastic. I will just give one thing away, that the death that made me the saddest in Mockingjay was that of a male character and not of a female character. And I feel that because the female character's death came way too fast. But between The Hunger Games and Catching Fire, just the idea of everything these characters go through and how strong they have to be, the fact that they do all the things they can for their families, going out and hunting. I mean, that they hunt squirrel at times and everything. I think it's a book that I really connected to because, well, one, before I got on YouTube and everything, I love to read, but I didn't analyze books the way I do now. Like, I enjoyed reading, but lately, as I'm getting more into my writing, and I'm getting more into BookTube, and listening to other BookTubers and reviewers, I'm, analyzing books more. And that's why I think when I picked this book up, this trilogy, and in some ways even, yes, the third one, I think that was the first book I really became, a fan of, a fangirl, not, totally crazy, but, that I really got into it because I was starting to look at books more deeply and their message. And, having a main character that is an older sister, people who have struggled financially and, have gone through rough times, and, you feeling like there's somebody on top of you always knocking you down. That is a big reason I connected to the series a lot. And yes, the death of the people in these first 2 books is just unbelievably sad because, in some ways it has to be done, but, it's taken everything these people are and everything, and yeah, I just go watch my review for this one. I also did a review on all 3 of the books, really, and I also did a top 10 list. Go watch that one because I rant and talk and such on things that I liked because they either made me feel something or they made me mad or whatever, but that definitely has a better explanation. So, if The Hunger Games actually made number 4, I don't know why I held up 1. That's 4. 4 right there. If that made number 4, and that's one of my absolute favorite books, if not, that is my favorite book. What are the top 3? I'm glad you asked. So, at number 3 is A Monster Calls. This book is just... I just felt so bad for this character all the way through, and you just kind of wanted just to be there for this kid and just hug him and tell him everything would be alright, even though you knew it wasn't going to be. So this is about a kid named Connor. He lives in England, I think it was, and his father is in America. His father basically has left the family. That's already happened. And his mother has cancer. And then one day he is visited by this monster who is giving him like these stories, these lessons, and within the story he talks about this dream he has, and then finally, not to give spoilers, but yes, at the end you do find out what the dream is. And I think the ending is more sad than anything, and maybe that's because you kind of knew it was coming. Like, it's one of those books that is kind of hard to spoil. Like, it's not that hard to really figure out what direction it's going to in, and I think and I think maybe that's why it's sad, because you don't want it to happen, but you know, in real life, that's mainly what happens. And you know, I think it's really about trying to be strong for other people when you need somebody to be strong for you. And that feeling of the world coming down on your shoulders and everything. And, you know, there's stuff that's happening that you just can't do anything about it, and you feel helpless. And, you know, especially when you're a kid, it's horrible. Number 2, and I know people have hang-ups about this, but The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. Oh, A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. I forgot about that. So, yes, there are issues, especially like them going around Amsterdam by themselves and everything. But I like the fact that these two characters, they were there for each other. You know, they were there when each other was sad. They were there to make each other laugh and everything. And their cancer, the things they went through didn't define them. They were people beyond that. They weren't just, it wasn't this girl is sick, she meets a guy, and everything changes. No, they still had cancer, and not to spoil the book, but at the end of the book, she still has cancer. Very sad, but it's true. And while some things were not realistic, I think a lot of things were realistic. The thing about it is, people were like, well, teenagers don't talk that way. I mean, to be honest, not to like elevate myself, because there's a lot of shit that I don't know. There's things I am totally ignorant and almost downright stupid on. But the things that I went through in my own life, and having to kind of grow up a little bit faster than some other people, I really wasn't too much into some of the things people my age were into. Like, I was and I wasn't, but I was never like a partier. I never like did certain things. I was into spirituality and religion and thinking about the world and stuff, and you know, I still do, and I like finding people who do, and I find a lot of that on BookTube and YouTube and stuff. And yeah, okay, let's talk about the cigarette thing. Okay, maybe that's not the best like metaphor or whatever, but I do like the fact that the character, like I said, did not let their disease, or his disease, we're talking about Augustus here actually, define him. Like, he took control of his life when he was able to. And like I said, I like the fact that at the end, things weren't just magically better. And number 1, by Alice C. Bolt, is The Lovely Bones. This was probably the first book that ever made me actually truly tear up. So this is about a girl who basically is lured down to this like chamber, underground thing by her neighbor, and he kills her. And this is all about her family and how it tears them apart, how she is watching them from like the afterlife. She sees her killer. He's gotten away with this. Nothing is being done because no one suspects him. And she sees that he's done this to other girls, and he's gotten away with this, you know, and that part makes you angry and everything. And then there is like her family who is falling apart. There's like almost affairs kind of going on and fights and everything else, and it kind of goes back and forth, you know, between that and some time before she was murdered and everything. And it was just so sad. It's told from first person. So you get this girl telling the story from heaven or whatever you believe in and everything. She's telling the story from the afterlife, and she's watching all this, and her life was cut short, and it's just so emotional. And I think it's one of the best like openers. She's just her name, the year she was killed, and all this other stuff. So yeah, this video is long enough. Oh my god, all my top 10 videos are being so long, but this because I just love talking about stuff I love. Anyways, if you sat through this whole video, thank you very much. And yeah, these are books that made me cry. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.